everyone, and welcome to the Wright Perspective. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe on any and every platform that you use to engage with us. Today, we're going to recap and review The King and I, a 1956 musical film directed by Walter Lang and starring Deborah Kerr and Brynner. The screenplay was based on the 1951 Rodgers and Hammerstein musical by the same name. The film made $21.3 million on a budget of $4.55 million. It was nominated for 9 Oscars, winning 5, and nominated for 4 Golden Globes, winning 2. For some, these accolades would make this movie a classic, but today we will determine whether it is a classic from the Wright perspective. We'll do a recap, discuss the movie, and then we'll take a vote using a voting symbol picked especially for this discussion. But we got to start with intros. Kick us off, bro.
Hi, I'm Aubrey Wright. I'm the oldest.
I'm Genia Wright, and I'm the middle.
Hi, I'm Brittany Wright, and I am the youngest. Etc. Etc. Etc.
That was actually a good one,
That was good. That was good. And y'all, I wanted to, when I was thinking about the intro, I wanted to say that this was our first, white savior movie that we've done, but y'all, it's not. Can y'all think of the other white savior movie that we have recapped and discussed on the Wright perspective?
Sound of Music?
Because that was white people helping white people.
Shout out, helping your
y'all. Cool Runnings. Definitely a white savior film.
What you not gonna do? What you not gonna
do? Listen.
White savior category.
Something being a white savior film does not automatically make it, something that can't be a classic from the Wright perspective.
You won't do that. You won't do that to John Candy. You won't do that to John Candy.
I don't
you
know
can be in denial about it, but it is a white savior film.
I'm just saying how it was a movie about bobsledding. Like, who was going to be the expert bobsled?
Who was going to be the savior?
I didn't mention it to question the logic or anything.
That Reese wanted to do the bobsled.
But the actual definition of the white savior trope is exactly what happened in that movie. Hate to break it to you. Okay? I mean, literally.
Listen, his scandalous shenanigans at the 1967, I'm not sure if that's the right date, Olympics, okay, Winter Olympics.
We're on the wrong movie right
now. Them, okay? He had to make it right. He wasn't.
Oh, look, a white person getting redeemed. Oh, redemption for him. How completely on par with that recipe for a white savior film. But anyway, let's keep going.
I'm discussing this on therapy on Tuesday. It's not a white savior film.
It is. It definitely is. All right, so let's go back to The King and I, today's white savior film. And we have to think of a voting symbol. And I guess you all are already picking up what I'm dropping as it relates to this movie. And I
think so.
And I do have.
Listen, and she hates when we do that.
Y'all,
it got her good, y'all. I got her
good. Even the recap, I had to take some edits from myself because I was like, Janae, you can't have all this tone in the recap.
You're not really recapping the movie. Just like when they watch Black Panther, they're gonna be like,
it was a critique.
Black Panther.
Right. It's supposed to be a recap. It was a critique. Well, first we have to pick a voting symbol. If you're new to the Wright perspective, we do a vote at the end of the podcast, and we choose a voting symbol that is related to the movie and pulled from the movie for that vote at the end of the podcast. And y'all, I have one to recommend, and I think it might be the best voting symbol I've ever recommended in the history of 3 seasons of the Wright Perspective podcast.
Well, I see I need to turn my camera off already.
I'm feeling several emotions right now.
I don't
know where we're going.
Okay. So the symbol I would like to recommend is the hoop dress. Okay.
All right.
Now the hoop
That's
dress.
What that dress is called.
Yeah.
I just call it a slavery dress.
There you go. Bitter tone. And so the hoop dress is like that character who came, the European character, the British character that came to Bangkok one of the ways that she visibly stood out in the film is that she was wearing a hoop dress, all the time, like with the tight little, what is it called at the top when it's tight?
A bustier?
Yeah, well, not bustier. It's called
corset.
Corset. Yes,
Corset.
with the corset at the top and the big hoop at the bottom. And that was the way you could be. I mean, in addition to her being white in a place full of people of color, in quotes,
Okay.
or let's say characters that were
Baby,
people of
some
color.
of them
Maybe
was
not the
cousins-
actors,
Some
but
of them
the
was cousins
characters.
to Bernardo.
Right.
In the What's That Story?
Not the actors, but the characters. One of the ways that she stood out was just visually, she was not dressed in the clothing of that country. And so she was wearing this hoop dress. And then the other thing about the hoop dress is there was a point in the movie where the wives of the king of Siam wanted to impress European visitors that were coming. And one of the ways they did that was by putting on hoop dresses. It's just kind of, so look how, civilized we are, because we can adopt your customs. So that's my proposed voting symbol.
All right. Hoop dress, let's do it. All right.
Sis, can
You have spoken.
Let's do it. All right.
Because I don't got nothing else.
Man, I have so many feelings.
Oh, do you?
So are y'all fine with hoop dresses our voting
Yes.
symbol? Okay. So at the end of this podcast, this movie will get 0, 1, 2, or 3 hoop dresses. It has to get 3 in order to be considered a classic from the Wright perspective.
And the dresses they put the wives in were
And
ugly.
I'm sure the suspense is killing the listeners. I'm sure.
I wonder if
It's gonna pass.
I wonder if it got your eyes vote.
they put ugly. They put
You
them.
never
I was
know.
mad about that. I was like, wait a minute.
There have been many times though where one of us had a conclusion at the top of the podcast, and through
This is true.
discussion, it changed.
This is true.
So let's go over the recap. It is brief. The king of Siam, King Mongkut, played by Brynner, who resides in Bangkok, has hired a widowed British school teacher, Anna Leon Owens, played by Deborah Kerr, to come to Bangkok and tutor his children generally, but especially about European culture. He wants to, quote unquote, bring all that is good from the West to Siam. He has lots of children and wives, and over time, Anna and her young son really become quite comfortable in the palace household. This is due in part to the fact that because of her whiteness and education, they see Anna as superior to every other woman in the household, including the king's first wife.
They call her Sir.
Anna and the king have a lot of push and pull in their relationship because she questions some of his views, while the other people around him tend to just go along with what he says. He grudgingly starts to respect her opinion on things. So he takes her advice when he finds out that the British regard him as barbaric and that they're sending a delegation to explore the possibility of turning Siam into a protectorate. And I looked up what a protectorate is. And a protectorate is, quote unquote, a state that is controlled and protected by another. So I think it's probably synonymous with like a colony. Anna convinces him to throw a Eurocentric banquet to gain the respect of the British authorities. The banquet is a success, and the British leave convinced that the king is not a barbarian. During the banquet, one of the king's concubines, Tuptim, played by Rita Moreno, tries to run away with the man she loves, but is captured by the king's guard. When they bring her to the king to get her punishment, which is a whipping, Anna tells the king that if he does it, she will always think of him as a barbarian. And so he doesn't whip Tuptim, but he feels so shaken by this questioning of his values and authority that he takes to his bed, and he doesn't eat or drink anything until eventually he dies and his son takes over as king. On his deathbed, he essentially praises Anna for her contributions as his advisor, and the entire family thanks her for leading them out of the darkness and into the light. The end.
Well, it's time to vote.
That was as much tone as I could pull out.
It's time to vote. How does it get your hoop dress?
When that little girl at the end of that movie said, "Don't let us go back into darkness."
When she said that, I was
Anna.
like, I almost called Amazon Prime and said, if y'all don't take this video off of here,
I'll tell you that the interesting thing for me, I mean, I assume we're just getting into it.
Go into it, bro.
So the interesting thing for me was it made me feel like, because usually when we're watching movies from the 50s and 60s, you know, from that time frame, we're usually dealing with Americanized racism and, you know, just the stuff that I have some sort of context of.
Sure.
But like, I felt like I was watching something that was wrong, and I'm not even, I think out of all of us, I'm the least sensitive to that, but I felt like I was watching something wrong. And the biggest reason is because I didn't have enough information. I felt like I don't even know how to say this is wrong, but I feel like, you know, other than the obvious, like these accents, and you know, I mean, other than that, it's just like, but I wouldn't know what a real accent would sound like. But it's like I knew that's a beautiful example.
You knew that wasn't right.
And that's a beautiful example. The one lady sounded Jamaican almost, you know?
Yeah, because one thing we do know, so Siam modern day name is Thailand, okay? And they had, I mean, Rita Moreno was playing somebody from Burma.
Meanwhile,
Okay?
she's Puerto Rican.
Right. So they were literally just like, it was obviously not a coherent set of a race that they had built, you know, and you're trying to give yourself trying to get over it because like maybe these people have been enslaved or they come here, you know, but they if they were going to do that, they should have said Rita Moreno was brought here from Puerto Rico, you know, but so they weren't even attempting to. Oh yeah, and a bit of trivia on that is that they actually Dorothy Dandridge was the original choice for that role. So originally they were going to use a Black woman to play that character. So that's how much they weren't really trying to be coherent. So bro, that's what you were seeing. It's just like this isn't accurate. There's not an attempted accuracy here, you know.
It is.
And you know, I could almost, like I said, I always put things in context like it's the 50s. If it was excellent acting, I feel like maybe I could have gave myself some sort of escape lever, but it was just like, it was almost parody. It was just so
That's exactly
jarring.
how it felt.
You know, it was just so jarring. And you couldn't really get into it because of that. You know, and I wonder what it was like watching it with 1950s eyes.
Well, obviously they loved it. You see all them Golden Globes and what
I know they loved it, but I wonder if they thought, if it was a thing,
yeah,
like they thought, like, yeah, this is very, you know, a great cultural, you know, experience that I'm having.
That, I think the word for me is that is part of, what is it? Maybe dichotomy, maybe is the word that I'm looking for. Because in one sense, the movie was speaking to something like slavery because it was in 1862. So slavery wasn't done until 1865. So this is happening during that time. And they speak to it and how it is egregious. And then they also have an accurate map in the background showing the actual sizes of countries.
Well, relatively accurate.
I will say relatively accurate.
Relatively.
It's much more accurate than what you see a lot of times with the United States.
Or than what they had before.
Or what they had before.
Right.
With the United States is like the size of Africa. And so it was, so I said, okay, they were trying to do some things that were a little more relevant in the 1950s. And I said, I can appreciate that. But this is where you're losing me. You're going to come into someone else's, country, into their kingdom, disrespecting their rules. Now listen here. I know some things have changed in 2022. Maybe people don't die right off. But I do believe in 1862, it would have been a story called The King and Just All by Himself, because he killed the woman as soon as she walked in. Him and her son, her son would have been dead. You do not come into someone's kingdom so disrespectfully, walking up to him when he's dismissed everyone, all these, just feeling a right to be able to do those things, not trying to work through these different elements that need to happen.
Just complete disregard.
Complete disregard for the culture.
Well,
And then
can I ask y'all this on that
Go
same topic? I just want to ask you, in this situation, what would be like if she and I'm not arguing, but I'm just saying, if she went and she just went along with all the customs, what would the movie have been about?
The movie could have still been about her being a teacher there and then teaching them things about the world, science, geography, all these different things. She could have still done that and been respectful. And there are so many people that have. There are so many reporters that will go into Muslim countries. They are not Muslim, but they will wear hijab because out of respect for the current area's rules. And so
and bro, I don't know if that's a fair question, because that would undo the movie. Because
but that's what I'm saying.
Right, but for the sake of discussion, I think I see what Brittany was just saying, that's just a flaw in the logic of the movie, because it would undo the movie if they had walked in the logic of that. I mean, I will say, like, one of the things that we're used to in watching musicals is the lead lady being sassy, and like really eschewing custom. Just like Millie from Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, our favorite, right? She's one of those characters that's like, I'm bucking these norms to some degree. People are telling her to get married. I'm not getting married till I want to get married. I'm in my mid-20s and I'm an old maid and I don't care, and so I think we're used to seeing the woman bucking custom, but it's a whole other thing. To do what you're talking about, sis, which is to go to another country and say, I have no regard for any of your rules. But
so much boldness.
It does, but it would undo the movie if she didn't do it.
Right.
Because that is the movie. The movie is her having no regard.
But I'm just, that part in and of itself, I guess I feel like if I went somewhere and I had a communication, like I have a communication from the king. So I'm already conversing with the king. And I'm looking for what was agreed upon. And if I don't have it, I'm like, well, I need to know right now because this boat's about to leave. And so I'm just saying, I feel like I would have been the same way. It's not like I could, like today, we could be like, well, I'll see what happens tomorrow because I'll just catch the flight out of Atlanta, tomorrow. But like, she's like, yo, if I don't get this boat, there's not another boat for months. And I got to know, do I need to roll or not? So that individual part, at least I could get there from a sense perspective, because it's like, I was talking to the king before via this. Why can't I talk to him now? And I'm talking to
the other part of that is, though, this mindset that she gets grace in doing this.
Right.
If anybody else in that country would have done that, they would have been whipped or killed.
She gets what doing that?
Grace, like special grace.
She gets special grace because she was white. That was the only reason. There was no other reason. And even when it just first started, when the boat was rolling up to them to be on the ship, the little boy was like, he's naked. The man just didn't have a shirt on. And I'm thinking to myself, you're so worldly. You haven't taught your children how people dress in other places. The other part of it was when they let the wives put the hoop dresses on. You were there when they were getting dressed and you didn't put any long underwear on them. Are you kidding me right now? And so I'm just even to that point, when they still didn't even make that right, they didn't put some kind of pants on them. The English dignitaries came in, or whatever they're called, and then they were super excited because the women ran off because they were afraid of the man's eyeglass, and ran off, and they pulled their dresses up front, which of course showed their naked bottoms. And I was just like, even in the 1950s, where y'all were discussing how slavery was wrong, y'all didn't see that this was also dumb and wrong. Like that, the part for me was like, even when you have your Brynner, you're a Russian actor playing a man from an Asian country. What? You have this woman, you have the other, and here's the part that also frustrated me. So y'all were able to find people of color to play the servants, the wives, the children. That casting call went well. But when it comes to the actual people in this country, you could find no one. And I understand Yul Brynner was probably famous at that time, so it was nice having him be a part of it. They could have wrote him a new character and brought him from Europe to do something, because that's where he's from.
Right.
But just those things that's where it was a imbalance for me. I was just, and even right down to the part, which was my favorite part, if I had to pick one, was the play inside the actual.
Yes, that play was well done.
It was so well done. But then to have a mask of a black monkey playing Uncle Tom, I was just like, y'all keep bringing me up, you bring me down. I'm on a roller coaster. What is happening here? Her voice, had such a beautiful voice. The main character, white woman, such a beautiful voice. But then you get to the one that's up here, and then but some of these songs, she had a whole song about her dead husband. Then there was this whole song for the king, basically feeling bad for him while he has all these wives and all these kids. I was just like, what is happening in this whole movie? And so even with me trying to put on a 1950s lens, I was still saying, like, there are ways that you can fact check things. Like, there are ways that you can have some sort of information where you can do better. Because again, obviously you were trying to poke at some stuff, but you didn't do a good job. You just did.
And I'll say, like, it just, but since on this point of like, you didn't even do a good job at poking fun at stuff, it was also for me like, so one of the things that they were doing sometimes is having the king and the other locals use broken English, right? Or like that, like poor, like not correct grammar. They weren't conjugating things correctly, whatever. Well, they weren't consistent with that. You know, it was kind of like, if you're going to be mocking people that have English as a second language, just be consistent with it. But it was like they would go in and out of the mocking, and then so it was just like you're applying the same grammatical rules for 75% of this conversation, and you're not providing it for like the last two sentences. So even that to me wasn't done well. It was almost like they were picking sentences where they wanted the person to sound
a certain way,
you know. So I will say, like, you know, even when we kind of like understand the casting principles of the time, I still just don't, to your points, like it just, the casting just didn't just even seem well done for the time, you know. And the other thing is, y'all, let's talk about like the acting and the singing, like the actual performances. You all, I have some trivia that might just shock your mind to Channel 9 here.
If you told me that wasn't her voice.
It wasn't her voice.
I'm getting out. All right. Well, y'all have a good rest of this podcast.
But you're not even ready. Guess what? So there was a woman named Marnie Nixon that sang for Anna. They even did a voice dub for Rita Moreno. Rita Moreno's voice dub was named Leona Gordon. And then the guy who played Tup Tum's lover, Loon Tha, he had a voice double, Ruben Fuentes. And so it was just, it's one of these things.
We were watching a Latin love story in Bangkok. That's what we was doing.
It's just so interesting. Like, but it just goes to show, because it happens today too, where the person cast is like the person who's going to draw people to the theater, even if they don't have everything that it takes to bring the part to life. So it wasn't just Brynner not being a person of color. It was also the lead singing actress not singing well enough, I guess. So the casting, I mean, and we know that there were top-notch actresses that they could have chose at the time.
Mhm.
Okay, they were out there. They could have cast someone that could really sing. Because frankly, even the dubbed voice, I'm not gonna lie, kind of let me down. I didn't think it was that great.
The one thing I'll say that I felt like there weren't too many songs, which was
that's true.
That was one positive.
Yeah, it's
and
true.
I felt like all of the songs did give you plot information, because they would sing about, like, even the song where she was singing about her husband, we didn't see their relationship. So that song just kind of gave you the context of where she was coming from. So I felt like all the songs at least gave information, but they didn't blow me away musically. And the dancing, I felt like the performances inside the play within the movie
Uncle Tom's
were great. But and that's the kind of level of things you normally let go, like the mask that you didn't like. It's like, but like
the mask, so good.
If that was the only thing, you'd be like, that mask just didn't hit me great emotionally, but whatever. You know what I'm saying? And like,
right.
But anyway, my point is outside of that, like the dance scene where Brynner and Anna, Brynner, were the king, and Anna were. That's another connection, by the way, to Cool Runnings.
Yes, it is.
But I wish I was laughing at the whole time. But that dance number in our favorite musicals would have been a big one. Absolutely. Like that
choreography would have been something.
That would have been the scene.
It was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, that would have been the scene. But I don't think that. To me, it was obviously either one of them don't have that level of dancing ability. I don't know if they do or not, but I'm saying that's the only way.
Yes.
That y'all are waltzing in the dance scene,
and not even really doing it. Like it wasn't even really. And bro, another scene where I was like, man, a good musical would have put some good choreography in here. Was the scene where Tuptum was talking with her lover in the shadows. They had snuck away in the night, and they were just trying to plot to see how they could be together. She had been enslaved. She had been essentially gifted to the king. She had no choice. She could not get away. And the man she was in love with said, I'm going to come up with a plan, and I'm coming back for you. And I just thought, man, this is exactly the kind of little moment where some great choreography would have just brought this moment home, and it just wasn't there.
Yeah, it could have been
a way, honey. That was a tragic story.
Sis, it was so tragic.
Bro, don't lose your thoughts. Say what you were going to say. But that was a tragic story. I was like,
I didn't say the recap, but essentially, if you haven't seen the movie or the play, her lover ends up dying. They find him dead in the river.
After they almost got away.
They captured Tuptum when she tried to get away, and then they found him dead in the river.
Yeah, I would have. The two things on that. I would have liked to see a dance number like the one in West Side Story when they're at the gymnasium. Like that type of number would have been good there. Like not a main number, but like a really good one. But let me ask you this. In real life, she would have been dead. Did that bother y'all?
Tuptum?
Yeah. Did that bother y'all as much as the other stuff bothered y'all? Because Tum would have been dead, period.
But, so the actual punishment per the story would have been a severe whipping. because they were about to do it right then. So a runaway merited a whipping. And so, and it wasn't a kill, it was a whipping.
Well, she didn't get whatever it was.
Yeah, she didn't get the whipping, but bro, I agree with you. I mean, one of the things I struggled with the entire movie was, you knew that what you were supposed to be seeing was Anna having some kind of influence on the king that would change his values. That's what was supposed to be happening, but it wasn't really happening. You know, I just kind of felt like, as much as I don't appreciate this story of some outsider coming in and telling you what your values should be, I feel I could have written it better, you know, to kind of create moments where she was somehow critiquing his behaviors consistently and saying something to him that would give him a pause, the kind of thing, maybe I should think about that differently. They just didn't give us enough of that. You know
what, that's very interesting.
And so when she was standing there saying, if you hit her, I will consider you a barbarian. It was more like him valuing her opinion as an individual, as opposed to it being like, yeah, I've been really struggling with my values since you came to town because you've given me some things to think about.
That's very true. Because if he was actually, like Brittany said, if he evolved in some way, he wouldn't have sat in the bed until he died. You know, totally. But I did want to say that was the other thing you point on, something that I think is also interesting to me or frustrating, is that it feels like all the elements are there to make an interesting story.
Yep.
You know, like it feels like you're right. If we just brought some Windex and polished this up.
Yes, I would love to see this redone properly.
Well, good news, sis. Here's some trivia for you. They keep redoing it. Okay, they redid it in 1999 as an animated movie. And
I saw that animated movie. I saw that come up.
And y'all, they're doing it again. They announced in February of 2021 that they're about to redo it again, and it's a live action.
Hold on. I think they didn't do a live action redo.
They might have. Another one. I will say this: the actual play, the stage musical rather, is still active, so people still perform The King and I, you know, so It's out there, you know. And I have to say about The King and I the same thing I said about West Side Story, which is, let us acknowledge it for what it was at the time and let us move on and create new content. There's just some times where you just don't need to go back and try to redo or debias or rethink or make more accurate. There are so many wonderful, there are countless numbers of creatives out there that could write a really great story for us. I just don't think we have to keep trying to fix these ones that were broken. Let us hold it in the archives and celebrate it for what it was, but let's just move on. Why are they remaking this over and over again?
I could see the potential for this. I just don't see there being a way with the wokeness, quote unquote, that's in 2022 and gone furthermore, how they're going to fix this.
Yeah.
Because the very concept of this white teacher, she's not some official from the country, any of those things. She's a teacher. And that's not to say that teachers aren't good, but I'm just saying in terms of how you're looking at levels of authority. She's a teacher coming in to teach the children, and her having so much influence and access to the king of a country.
It's just weird.
There's no way to make this okay. Like there's just none. And even to have you would have to take out so many parts for this movie to just be appropriate. Whereas for West Side Story, they just had to make sure that there was people of color in it. It's like it was like you needed to make sure that. But
yeah, that was a casting question.
Exactly.
This is a story question.
This is a
where
story
we're raising
question,
story questions here.
Even right
Plot
down
challenges.
to how the first wife knew how to speak English, but she was taught by a missionary. So she was immediately starting to quote Bible scriptures to Anna, is that her name? When she came in. And I was just like, what is going on here? Now, with that being said, because I don't want to talk all the way bad about it, there were some parts that did make me laugh. Like when the very last little girl that we saw, because apparently he had 67 other kids we don't see, the very last little girl that came out and she was late and he picked her up and he turned her around and put her the right way.
That was cute.
That was cute. I thought that there were certain parts that were funny, but then
I thought he was funny.
He did do a good. He was.
I felt like he did. I felt like he did the best with the situation. As you know, like him. I mean, what are you gonna do? You're in the movie. I felt like he gave it his all. I felt like he gave it his all. I felt like he really.
But like, bro, as a leading man for a musical, do you think he met the challenge? I mean, he didn't
I'm not
sing well. He didn't.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I felt like he was doing the best he could. I'm not saying it was great. I'm saying I felt like he was trying hard, and in that level of effort, there were a couple of things that spilled through that were enjoyable to me.
And that little boy did a good job too.
Well, on the topic of the kids, y'all, I thought the children were adorable.
They were.
But I just also felt like if you're going to have a cast with a bunch of children in it, I expect those kids to be great dancers, great singers.
Listen,
it was another place where I was just really let down. As soon as I saw all those children, I thought, oh my gosh, there's going to be some awesome dance number at some point with all of these kids. They're going to do something. No, I mean, they didn't even really sing well. They just gave them little chanty like little songs. And it just was like, you have if you're going to have a cast with a ton of children in a musical, those kids need to bring it. And I just didn't think those children were set up to bring it, number one. So who knows if they ever could have been, but it just felt like yet another missed opportunity.
They were props for a white love story.
They were props. They were props.
That's what they were, because this is a European lady. They're two Europeans in this movie talking to each other, and that's all it is. That's what this movie is.
It's too bad. It's too bad. It's too bad because to have all those kids. And I will say, I mean, so the actual story of The King and I, even the original stage musical, which actually preceded the movie. They're based on memoirs by a woman who actually it was her experience of going to Bangkok and actually being a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what has happened over time, and it was apparently at the time that a lot of the things that she put in her memoir were deemed inaccurate. So there was already a lot of inaccuracies in the story that she told. So, for example, the Tuptim storyline, which existed in her memoirs, was proven inaccurate and kind of completely made up, even though she had printed it as if it was true. And so the
hero always gets to tell the story.
Yeah, the source material has been named as flawed. Okay. And then on top of that, they've taken these other liberties. So like the actual king, that actual woman, the real woman who wrote the memoir that she supported, he had I think it was either 13 or 16 children. It was not over 100. So even the way that they made him overly sexualized and, it was just, they were just, again, attempts at having any accuracy or truth. I just feel like they didn't take the opportunity. They didn't take the opportunity to try to give it some truth. They didn't take the opportunity to give us characters that truly built relationship so that they could change each other and influence each other. They didn't give us, an opportunity to even have enough to kind of fall into love with the characters. Mm-hmm. That's the thing about these musicals. It's like you're supposed to go on an emotional journey and they just didn't give us enough.
Yeah. And one last thing I want to say, and this is going to be my last little piece of comment, just to really even speak to more of the arrogance, the white arrogance that was happening in this movie. At the end, the teacher was speaking to her son, and she was like, "Oh, I wish you could have gotten to know the king. He would have been a great friend."
Not mentor,
A
not
friend?
inspiration.
What? I was just like, this is a delusion that's happening in this movie.
Yeah,
But
that
it's not actually
you
a
would talk
delusion.
to your 12-year-old son and tell him that he could have been friends with the king of a
Friends?
country, a grown man.
I was like, okay,
I caught that
see
too, sis.
that these little things that were just like, let's not. And also, I think that this is another thing that I hate that we do that happen in a lot of these movies that are back in the day anyway, just making like other countries are just so ignorant of the rest of the world.
It's true.
And it's just not true. It's just not true.
That they would see a man with a beard and say, he has the head of a goat.
And run away.
No, he has a beard. Beards happen.
Is this serious? Is this?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. They were like, why didn't you teach them that? Teach them that
beards don't make a person a goat. All right. You know what?
Great. I'm pretty sure their fathers that they no longer see had beards. Like, I'm just like, what's happening here? What's happening? What?
Oh God. I think we're ready to vote. I think we're ready to vote. Take us into the vote, bro.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely is not a classic in my mind in the sense of it's not on the list of musicals that give me that good feeling at all. But further, I mean, I would, like, if I had a musical Blu-ray collection, I would have it.
Because our mom watched it, which we didn't mention earlier in the podcast. This was one of mommy's.
But I mean, I would have it because of what happened as a movie. Like, it had this big, box office, and it is a movie that's on the list of big musicals.
Yeah.
So I would have it there, but I wouldn't feel comfortable. This is how I would feel comfortable watching it. If I spent some months doing research on all of the, culture of the time of the movie, and even some of the stuff that Janai was talking about the realities versus, I didn't even know it was supposed to be based on a true story. Mm-hmm. But that way, if I ever watched it with somebody, it would be a movie the whole time. I would be, well, actually, this is what happened.
That's right. That's
right in the middle. And so that's where I would.
Totally.
That's where I would put it. So definitely that doesn't get my hoop dresser. Definitely not a classic for me.
Well, surprise. It doesn't get my hoop dresser.
It didn't send me like it did y'all too. But
look, baby, I was in another stratosphere when I was watching this. I had to look at my cell phone every now and then just to keep myself together. I said, Brittany, look at something else. Don't look at the screen.
Here's what I was actually prepared for. I was prepared for a movie that was going to be done well, but have, some problematic,
but it's
movie, some problematic Hollywood issues of the time.
Absolutely.
So I knew that there was a white man playing this king in Thailand. I knew that. And so I was ready for that. What I was not ready for is the story to not be well developed. Yeah. I was not ready to see all right.
Yeah.
To know that y'all didn't even sing well and y'all were dubbed.
Yeah. No dancing. No great dancing.
And then to still be able to be classified as a musical.
Right. I was really expecting to be in a dilemma. Like, what I expected to say to you all was, man, that story, I can see why people revere it.
Yeah.
I can see why people love this movie and cherish it because of what I saw and what I experienced. And I have to set aside my 2022 lens and appreciate the movie. But guess what? They did not meet any of the challenges. I mean, if they could have sang well, maybe you let go of the dancing. If they danced well, maybe you let go of the singing. If the characters are well developed, maybe you let go of the singing. We didn't have anything. I left just full of anger and disappointment.
We see.
Surprise.
So much.
You did not get my hoop dress, King and I.
King and I, you do not get my hoop dress. I do not plan on revisiting this movie. I will not be showing my future children or nieces and nephews this movie. I'm actually going to forget it exists because I know quality musicals and I don't know what's happening here. I also just feel as though you could have done better. I appreciate where you tried, but you failed miserably in so many other categories that it was too frustrating to bear. It was too much. It was too much.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I would have expected at least the small theatrical part on Uncle Tom's Cabin, which they kept saying Uncle Tom's Tiny House, which I feel like there was some copyright issues. That's why they have to keep saying that.
No, well, she referred to it as Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Yeah,
okay.
Because they actually had the book, Uncle Tom's Cabin.
They
there.
did.
They said Harriet Beecher Stowe, so they acknowledged the book. But then what happened was Tub Tum made a play based on the book.
Yes.
And it was her interpretation. So that they renamed it.
Yes. Okay.
For her interpretation. But they did name the actual book. And
well, that Uncle Tom's Tiny House was the best part. And if
Uncle
you all
Thomas, I think they called it.
Something whatever it was called, it was the best part of the entire musical, because that is how musicals actually happen. They tell a story. There are people that can dance. There are people, everything that was happening, the beauty of it. I was just like, yeah, this is something entertaining. Like I would have loved to gone and seen that in a theater.
Absolutely.
What you gave me on that screen, no thank you. So no hoop dress. Matter of fact,
has that ever happened before?
What?
All three of us not liking. I don't know if that's ever happened.
I don't think so. This might be our first zero votes.
We have to go back and check that.
We have to go back and check. But one thing is for sure.
But I'm excited.
We have the answer, folks. The King and I is not a classic.
Womp womp, etc.
It is not.
That was funny.
From the
Right was funny.
Yeah, that's where the potential was.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that Uncle Thomas's little house was so well done meant that they did have good choreographers somewhere. Where were they at for the rest of the movie? Yeah, whoever wrote that funny, etc. line, write the rest.
Because you know what? I bet you what happened is that someone from actually Thailand probably came and choreographed that.
I guess
probably exactly. Like if we were to go into the credits, I'm pretty sure that someone at least who has studied the culture has been there and then came and did that part.
It was so
everything
much
else
better.
Though.
All right. Well, y'all, thank you for joining us. This podcast had a different kind of tone than some of our others.
Oh no, the tone was correct.
It's
always right with the.
And I'm gonna let you all know, my sisters still toned it down for y'all. Okay, I just want y'all to know.
I have so much more I would say.
Yeah, they definitely.
They're locked away from
so much else to say.
So y'all did phenomenal.
Thanks, bro. Hashtag restraint. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. We love you. Thank you so much.
Love you guys.
Bro. Love you, bro. Bye.